Post-employment. Kinds of employment. We have regular employees, which refer to those who have been engaged to perform activities which are usually necessary or desirable in the usual business or trade of the employer. Casual employees is one engaged to perform a job, work, or service that is merely incidental to the business of the employer, and such job, work, or service is for a definite period made known to the employee at the time of his engagement. But any employee who has rendered at least 1 year of service, whether such service is continuous or broken, shall be considered a regular employee with respect to the activity in which he is employed, and his employment shall continue while such activity exists. The nature of work determines the kind of employment. So what determines regularity or casualness is not the employment contract, but the nature of the job. If the job is usually necessary or desirable to the main business of the employer, then the employment is regular. Project employees is one hired for carrying out a separate job distinct from the other undertakings of the company, the scope and duration of which has been determined and made known to the employees at the time of their engagement. Note that the absence of a definite duration of the project, the employee is deemed to be a regular employee. Coterminous. The services of a project employee are coterminous with the project and may be terminated upon the end of the completion of that project for which they were hired. Continuous rehiring of a project employee. The continuous rehiring of the employee may serve as a badge of regular employment when the activities performed by the purported project employee was necessary and indispensable to the usual business or trade of the employer. Once a project or work pool employee who has been continuously as opposed to intermittently rehired by the same employer for the same task or nature of task, and these tasks are vital, necessary, and indispensable to the usual business or trade of the employer, then the employee must be deemed a regular employee. Other indicators of a project employment: the duration of the specific or identified undertaking for which the worker is engaged is reasonably determinable. Such duration, as well as specific work or service to be performed, is defined in the employment agreement and is made clear to the employee at the time of his hiring. The work or service performed by the employee is in connection with the particular project or undertaking for which he is engaged. The employee, while not employed and awaiting engagement, is free to offer his services to other employers. The termination of his employment in the particular project or undertaking is reported to the Dole Regional Office having jurisdiction over the workplace within 30 days following the date of his separation from work, using the prescribed form on the employee's terminations. The rationale is to prevent double or successive probation, to circumvent the mandate of the law on regularization, and make it easier for them to dismiss their employees. In one case, the Supreme Court held that respondents were regular employees and not project employees, as there were no evidence that they were informed of their project-based employment status at the time of hiring. The unsigned employment contracts presented by the petitioners had no probative value. Further, the petitioners failed to report the termination of the supposed project employment to the Dole Regional Office, indicating that the respondents were regular employees. The continuous employment of respondents for several years further supported their status as regular employees. Fixed-term employees. This is a type of employment embodied in a contract, specified that the services of the employee shall be engaged only for a definite period, and the termination of which occurs upon the expiration of the said period, irrespective of the existence of just cause, regardless of the activity of the employee is called upon to perform. Regular fixed-term employee. Continuous renewal of an employee's contract without interruption, maintaining the same position and duties, qualifies them as a regular employee, regardless of a fixed-term designation. The law allows regular employees to have a fixed-term contracts if freely negotiated by both parties or requested by the employee for valid reasons. There is no implied renewal in fixed-term employees. Upon reaching the specified termination date, there is no implied renewal or extension of employment. This must be explicitly agreed upon by the parties. Seasonal employees are those who work or perform services which are seasonal in nature, and the employment is for the duration of the season. Constant rehiring of seasonal workers are only which and are temporarily laid off during off-season are not separated from service in said period but are merely considered on leave until work resumes. They are considered regular and permanent employees. The nature of their relationship is such that during off-season they are temporarily laid off, but during summer season they are re-employed, or when their services may be needed. Generally, to be considered seasonal employee, it is enough that the work or service performed are seasonal in nature. The employees must have been employed only for the duration of one season. Exception: only respondent constantly availed herself of the petitioner's services from year to year. It was clear from the facts therein that they were not in her regular employees. Petitioners therein performed different phases of agricultural work in a given year. However, during that period, they were free to work for other farm or owners, and in fact they did. In other words, they worked for respondent but were nevertheless free to contract their services with other farm owners. The court was thus emphatic when it ruled that petitioners were mere project employees who could be hired by other farm owners. Probationary employee is one who, for a given period of time, called the trial period, is being observed and evaluated to determine whether or not he is qualified for permanent employment. Probationary employment must have been expressly agreed upon, otherwise the employment is considered regular. Security of tenure of probationary employees. Although probationary employees enjoy security of tenure, they do not enjoy permanent status and thus may be terminated on two grounds: just cause and failure to qualify as a regular employee in accordance with the reasonable standards prescribed by the employer. Probationary employee may be dismissed before the end of the probationary period. Termination, to be valid, must be done before the lapse of the probationary period, and of course due process should be complied with. 6 months probationary period. As a general rule, probationary employment shall not exceed 6 months from the date the employee started working. The 6-month probationary period is reckoned from the date of appointment up to the same calendar date of the 6 month following, when the probationary employee becomes a regular employee. Generally, when an employer renews a contract of employment after the lapse of 6 months probationary period, the employee thereby becomes a regular employee. That no employer is allowed to determine indefinitely the fitness of its employees, except valid extension of the 6-month period after proper evaluation or a second chance to pass the standards of the company. Other exceptions based on jurisprudence: the nature of work requires longer period, such as part-time faculty of educational institutions. A longer period is required and established by company policy, covered by apprenticeship or learnership agreements stipulating a different period, voluntary agreement of parties, when the same is required by the nature of the work. Probationary period set for professors, instructors, and teachers is 3 consecutive years of satisfactory service pursuant to Dole Manual of Regulations for Private Schools. Termination by employer. Just causes. 1. Serious misconduct or willful disobedience. Disobedience. The employee's conduct must be serious, of such grave and aggravated character, and not merely trivial or unimportant. The misconduct must be related to the performance of the employee's duties, showing him to be unfit to continue working for the employer, and third, that the act or conduct must have been performed with wrongful intent. Immoral conduct is the conduct which is so willful, flagrant, or shameless as to show indifference to the opinion of the good and respectable members of the community. Further, such conduct must not only be immoral but grossly immoral. It must be so corrupt as to constitute a criminal act, or so unprincipled as to be reprehensible to a high degree, or committed under such scandalous or revolting circumstances as to shock the common sense of decency. When we say open and willful disobedience, or the so-called insubordination, uh, for it to be valid for as a cause of dismissal, there must two there must be the presence of these two elements. One, that the employee's assailed conduct must have been willful or intentional, the willfulness being characterized by a wrongful and perverse attitude. And two, the order violated must have been reasonable, lawful, and made known to the employee, and must pertain to the duties which he had been engaged to discharge. Second, cause of termination by employer as just cause is the gross and habitual neglect of duties. Gross negligence is the extreme lack of care in the performance of one's duties. It involves acting or failing to act willfully and intentionally with conscious indifference to the potential consequences for others. When we say habitual neglect, then there is a repeated failure to perform one's duties for a period of time. The third just cause is fraud or willful breach of trust. Fraud and willful neglect of duties implied bad faith on the part of the employee in failing to perform his job to the detriment of the employer and the latter's business. There are forms of neglect of duty. One is abandonment. Abandonment of employment is the deliberate and unjustified refusal of an employee to resume his employment. Abandonment occurs when an employee fails to report for work without valid reason, coupled with a clear intention to sever the employer-employee relationship. It is important to note that the abandonment cannot coexist with the claim of constructive dismissal, because both are different. So, to constitute abandonment, there must be the presence of two elements. One, the failure to report to work or absence of valid or justifiable reason, and a clear intention to sever the employer-employee relationship, with the second element as a more determinative factor and manifested by some overt acts. Abandonment as a just ground for dismissal requires the deliberate, unjustified refusal of the employee to perform his employment responsibilities. The mere absence or failure to work, even after notice to return, is not tantamount to abandonment. Other types is tardiness and absenteeism, poor performance, and dishonesty and loss of confidence. The fraud must be committed against the employer or representative in connection with the employee's work. Thus, the fraud committed against third persons not in connection with his job or his work, and this is not in any way involved or does not in any way involve his employer, is not a ground for dismissal. Furthermore, since fraud implies willfulness or wrongful act intent, the innocent non-disclosure of facts by the employee to the employer will not constitute a just cause for dismissal. The fourth just cause for termination by the employer is the loss of trust and confidence, which applies only to employees occupying positions of trust and confidence, such as managerial employees and employees who are routinely charged with the care and custody of employers' money or property, which may include rank and file employees such as cashiers, auditors, property custodians, or third, those who, in the normal routine exercise of their functions, regularly handle significant amounts of money or property. The loss of trust and confidence is a just cause, requires an underlying act, deed, or conduct from which a reasonable belief of untrustworthiness might be inferred. The difference between rank and file personnel and managerial employee. For a rank and file personnel to be a ground for a valid dismissal, uh, and the cause is loss of trust and confidence, It requires proof of involvement in the alleged events in question. The mere uncorroborated assertion and accusations by the employer will not be sufficient. For a managerial employee to be dismissed on the ground of loss of confidence and trust, um, it is sufficient that there is some basis for such loss of confidence, such as when the employer has a reasonable ground to believe that the employee concerned is responsible for the purported misconduct and the nature of his participation therein renders him unworthy of the trust and confidence demanded by his position. The fifth just cause is a commission of a crime. Elements: there must be an act or omission punishable or prohibited by law. That act was committed by the employee against a person of his employer, against any immediate member of his family, against the employer's duly authorized representative. And of course, analogous cases. And an example for here is an attitude problem of an employee, which constitutes just cause for termination, as an attitude problem disrupts workplace harmony and hampers organizational efficiency. An employee who cannot collaborate with colleagues adversely impacts the company operations, necessitating management intervention to safeguard the organization. Personal conflicts between employees and management disrupts the peace within the company. When we say immediate family members, this is referred to the spouse, ascendants, descendants, or legitimate natural or adopted brothers or sisters of the employer or his relative by affinity in the same degrees, and those by consanguinity within the fourth civil degree. We have the concept of preventive suspension, and this is a disciplinary measure which is a management prerogative for the protection of the company's property pending investigation of any alleged malfeasance or misfeasance committed by the employee. So here, the employer may place the worker concerned under PS or preventive suspension if his continued employment possesses a serious and imminent threat to the life and property of the employer or his co-workers. The imposition of preventive suspension must be done reasonably, in good faith, and in a manner not otherwise intended to defeat or circumvent the rights of the employee under special laws and valid agreements. Preventive suspension, while it is not a penalty, is implemented to safeguard the employer's or co-worker's life or property pending investigation of the alleged employee infractions. However, its imposition should be exercised cautiously, considering that employees forego their salaries and benefits during the suspension. Note that no preventive suspension shall last longer than 30 days. We have to differentiate constructive dismissal and demotion. Constructive dismissal is an employer's act amounting to dismissal but is made to appear as if it were not. So it is a dismissal in disguise. So constructive dismissal is a cessation of work because continued employment is either rendering it impossible or unreasonable or unlikely, when there is a demotion in rank or diminution in pay or both, or when a clear discrimination, insensibility, or disdain by the employer becomes unbearable to the employee. The test for constructive dismissal is whether a reasonable person in the employee's position would have felt compelled to give up his position under the circumstances. However, demotion in rank or diminution in pay may be caused by a legitimate justification or as a legitimate exercise of disciplining power on the part of the employer, for as long as the same is done in good faith and due process is observed. We have this principle of a floating status, or temporary of detail, or floating status is a period of time when security guards are in between assignments or when they are made to wait after being relieved from previous post until they are transferred to a new one. And during such time, the security guard does not receive any salary or any financial assistance provided by law, because generally it does not constitute a dismissal, as the assignments primarily depend on the contracts entered into by the security agencies with third persons, so as long as the status does not continue beyond a reasonable time. However, when such floating status lasts for more than 6 months, the employee may be considered to have been constructively dismissed. I repeat, however, when the floating status lasts for more than 6 months, the employee may be considered to have been constructively dismissed. Authorized causes under the Labor Code. We have retrenchment or downsizing, which is a mode of terminating employment initiated by the employer through no fault of the employee and without prejudice to the latter, resorted to by management during periods of business recession, industrial depression, or seasonal fluctuations, or during lulls over shortage of materials. It is a reduction in manpower, a measure utilized by an employer to minimize business losses incurred in the operation of the business. So that's one authorized cause. Okay, the last one hired is the first one fired. This is a policy that generally applies only to cases of labor-saving devices, redundancy, and retrenchment, except when an employee volunteers to be separated from employment or there is a determination of the employees to be retrenched is in accord with the CBA. The next authorized cause is redundancy. So this exists when the service of an employee is in excess of what is reasonably demanded by the actual requirements of the business. Redundancy exists when the service capability of the workforce is in excess of what is reasonably needed to meet the demands of the business enterprise. A position is redundant where it has become superfluous. For a redundancy program to be valid, the following requisites must concur. First, there must be a written notice served to the DOLE and the employees at least 1 month prior to the intended date of the termination of employment. There must be a payment of separation pay equivalent to at least 1 month for every year of service. There must be good faith in abolishing the redundant position, and there is fair and reasonable criteria in determining which positions are to be declared redundant and accordingly abolished, considering the factors such as preferred status, efficiency, and seniority, among others. The third authorized cause is closure. There must be a decision to close or cease operation of the enterprise by the management, and that decision is made in good faith, and there is no other option available for the employer except to close or cease its operation. The right to close, whether losing or not, is not due to serious business losses or financial reverses. So if the business is not losing, but its owner, for reasons of his own, wants to get out of business, he in good faith can lawfully do so anytime. Just as no law forces anyone to go into business, no law compels anybody to stay in business, but the employee should be paid severance pay. No separation pay in case of closure because of serious business losses. So kanina, there was a closure but there is no serious business loss. So the employees are entitled to a severance pay. Now, when there is a closure because of a serious business loss, Article 298 governs of the Labor Code. It considers closure of business as an authorized cause for the dismissal of employees, whether or not the closure is due to serious business losses. However, if the closure is not due to serious business loss, the employer is required to pay its employee separation pay equivalent to 1 month pay or at least 1/2 month pay for every year of service, whichever is higher. Ayon for a closure with no serious business losses. There must be a severance pay of 1 month or 1/2 month for every year of service. Pero pag closure because of serious business loss, no separation pay. The fourth authorized cause for termination is disease. An employer may terminate the services of an employee who has been found to be suffering from any disease or whose continued employment is prohibited by law or is prejudicial to his health as well as the health of his co-employees. To be a valid ground for termination, there must be a certification by a competent public authority that the disease is such a nature or at a such stage that it cannot be cured within a period of 6 months, even with proper medical treatment. And the medical certificate must be issued by the company's own physician. Is not certified by a competent public health authority. Okay. So the medical certificate must come from a competent public health authority. If the medical certificate is issued by a company's own physician, it is not within the ambit of a certificate issued by a competent public health authority. So the fifth authorized cause is union security clause. Security is a generic term which is applied to and comprehends closed shop, union shop, maintenance of membership, or any other form of agreement which imposes upon employees the obligation to acquire or retain union membership as a condition affecting employment. So if you are not a member of the union, you will also be terminated. So in terminating the employment of an employee by enforcing the union security clause, the employer needs only to determine and prove that the union security clause is applicable. The union is requesting, so it should be the union who will request for the enforcement of the union security clause and not the employer. Okay, and there is sufficient evidence to support the decision of the union to expel the employee from the union. The sixth authorized cause is illegal strike. So, illegal strike is one stage for a purpose not recognized by law, or if for a valid purpose is conducted through means not sanctioned by law. So, test in determining the legality of strike, the following must concur. The purpose test, the strike must be due to either bargaining deadlock or an unfair labor practice. There must be compliance with the procedural and substantive requirements of the law. And the means employed, it states that the strike may be legal at its inception, but eventually be declared illegal if the strike is accompanied by violence, which is widespread, pervasive, and adopted as a matter of policy, and not mere violence, which is sporadic and which normally occurs in a strike area. The liability of participation in illegal strike by the union officers or an ordinary member. If the union officers commit illegal strike, the mere finding or declaration of illegality of the strike will result in the termination of all union officers who knowingly participate in the illegal strike. Unlike in ordinary members, it is not required for the purpose of termination that the officer should commit an illegal act during the strike. However, absent any showing that the employees are union officers, they cannot be dismissed solely on the illegality of the strike. Further, the fact that they are union officers is not sufficient. It should be proven that they participated knowingly. Okay. Ordinary union members, the mere finding or declaration of illegality of the strike will not result in the termination of the members. For an ordinary union member to suffer termination, it must be shown by clear evidence that he has committed illegal acts during the strike. So why is there a distinction? Union officers, it's because union officers have the duty to guide their members to respect the law. If instead of doing so, the officers urge the members to violate the law, their dismissal from the service is just a penalty for the unlawful act. And their responsibility as main players in the illegal strike is greater than that of an ordinary union member. And therefore, limiting the penalty of dismissal only to the former or the union officers for their participation in an illegal strike is in order. Okay. Procedure. Substantive due process, which means the employee's dismissal is justified, lawful, and valid. Okay. Procedural due process, which requires ample opportunity for the worker to explain his side before he is dismissed. Note that the absence of substantive due process makes the dismissal illegal, while absence of procedural due process, although similarly illegal, does not invalidate the dismissal but makes the employer liable for nominal damages. So despite having despite having a just cause for dismissal, non-adherence to the proper procedural requirements entitles the defendant to nominal damages of 30,000 according to prevailing jurisprudence. So there is the requirement of a twin notice rule. Okay, so for termination of employment based on just cause, so just cause kasi yun yung mga in-enumerate natin na uh, loss of trust, breach of confidence, willful, habitual neglect of duty. Yeah, so just cause is on the part of there is a act or an omission caused by the employee. So for him to be terminated using the just causes enumerated in the labor code, there must be the concurrence of the twin notice rule.
So the rudimentary requirement of due process required that an employer dismissing an employee must furnish the latter with two written notices before the termination of employment can be effected. And the first notice apprises the employee of the particular acts or omissions of which the dismissal is sought. So dito nakalagay kung ano yung grounds for his termination, ano yung facts na nangyari kung bakit to isinuserve sa kanya, charge sa kanya, and the directive to the employee uh, that he has the opportunity to submit a written explanation within a reasonable period. So, usually 5 days yan. Okay. The second notice naman informs the employee of the decision uh, for him to be dismissed. So, sa second notice, nakalagay yung circumstances involving the charge against the employee, which are considered, and then the grounds which have been established to justify the severance of the employment. So, doon tine-terminate na siya. So, asan yung hearing dyan? Nandun na sa written explanation. So, hearing does not mean that there is a conference for the employee to be heard. Hearing is also done when the employee is given the opportunity to be heard, to hear his side, yun, no? So, yung sa letter, sa explanation letter, during the first notice, na sinabihan siya na mag-reply, no, to explain himself, that is already hearing. Hearing, a formal hearing or conference becomes mandatory only when requested by the employee in writing or substantial evidentiary disputes exist or company rule or practice requires it, or when similar circumstances justify it. The ample opportunity to be heard standard in the labor code prevails over the hearing or conference requirement in the implementing rules and regulations. So when is hearing not required? If the employee already admitted his guilt, para saan pa? The termination is justified by any authorized causes. Authorized causes naman is due to the employer's fault. So yung mga redundancy, um, ano yun, yung maglalagay ka na ng automation, yun, retrenchment, closure, either with serious business loss or no serious business loss, yan. Termination initiated by the employee. A termination of probationary period of employment. Suspension of employment relationship resulting to bona fide suspension of operation, and in case of project employment, termination upon completion of the project. Okay. Is verbal notice of termination legal? A verbal notice of termination can hardly be considered as valid or legal. To constitute valid dismissal from employment, there must be two requisites. First, the dismissal must be for just or authorized cause. And the second is that the employee must be afforded an opportunity to be heard or defend himself. That is due process. So in the case, the Supreme Court found that the complainant sufficiently established the fact of his dismissal through a detailed account of events on June 11, 2015, when his immediate supervisor and general manager ordered him to go home and never return. Being his immediate superior and the general manager, complainant believed that the respondent had terminated his employment. So when a verbal command not to report for work is uttered by a person who has the capacity and authority to terminate really the employment of an employee, then the same could be construed as an overt act of dismissal. So reliefs from illegal dismissal, first is reinstatement. Reinstatement means restoration to a state or condition from which one had been removed or separated. The person reinstated assumes the position he had occupied prior to his dismissal. Okay. So, generally, reinstatement and back wages ay pwedeng makuha ulit ng employee who was illegally dismissed, except separation pay, closure of business, economic business conditions, employees' unsuitability, employees' retirement or overage, antipathy and antagonism, judged with a totally different nature, long passage of time, inimical to the employer's interest, when supervening facts have transpired, which make execution on the score unjust or inequitable, or to an increasing extent. Okay, prescription of an action for reinstatement by reason of illegal dismissal. is one based on injury which may be brought within 4 years from the time of his dismissal. In any event, the decision of the labor arbiter reinstating a dismissed separated employee insofar as reinstatement aspect is concerned shall immediately be executory pending appeal. Ibig sabihin, pag sinabi ng labor arbiter na he should be reinstated, kahit na umaapil na pa sa employer, kailangan ma-reinstate si employee. The employee shall either be admitted back to work under the same terms and conditions prevailing prior to his dismissal or separation, or at the action of the employer merely reinstated in payroll. Kung ito kasi, pwede mo i-reinstate, pero kung si employer ay ayaw ka nang makita, di ba? At makakasira ka lang naman ng organisasyon, i-reinstate ka niya, pero by payroll. So, sa bahay ka lang, hindi ka papasok sa trabaho, pero babayaran ka ni employer through reinstatement in the payroll. Okay, effect of bond. The posting of bond by the employer shall not stay the execution of reinstatement provided herein. Okay, options given to employers. So, they can actually reinstate the dismissed employee or constructively reinstate them in payroll. Either way, this must be done immediately upon filing of their appeal without the need of any executory writ. If the order of reinstatement of the LA is reversed on appeal, it is obligatory on the part of the employer to reinstate and pay the wages of the dismissed employee during the period of appeal until the reversal of a higher court. The LA's order of reinstatement is immediately executory and the employer has to either readmit them to work under the same terms and conditions prevailing prior to their dismissal or to reinstate them in payroll. And that failing to exercise the options in the alternative, employer must pay the employee's salaries. E paano kung na-reverse ulit? Tama pala sa employer. And reinstate mo by payroll um, or nire-reinstate mo na actually or physically. So, ita-terminate mo siya kung actual or physical mo siyang nare-reinstate. Terminate mo siya kasi tama ka pala. Pero kung nare-reinstate mo siya via payroll, tapos tama ka pala, hindi mo na pwedeng bawiin yung binigay mo sa kanya na sahod. Hindi mo pwedeng bawiin. Okay. Ito pala, no refund doctrine. An employee who cannot be compelled to reimburse the salaries and wages he received during the pendency of his appeal, notwithstanding the reversal of the NLRC of the LA's order of reinstatement. Reliefs from illegal dismissal. Number 2, back wages. So, earnings lost by a worker due to his illegal dismissal. A form of relief that restores the income lost by reason of such unlawful dismissal in the nature of command to the employer to make public reparation for illegally dismissing an employee, and it is not a private compensation or damage, nor it is a redress of a private right. Effect of failure to order back wages, a plain error which may be rectified even if the employee did not bring an appeal regarding the matter. Extent of entitlement, generally an illegally dismissed employee is entitled to full back wages, except when the court awarded limited back wages where the employee was illegally dismissed but the employer was found to be in good faith and there was delay of the employee in filing the case for illegal dismissal. Another relief is the payment of separation pay, which is defined as the amount that the employee receives at the time of his severance from the service and is designated to provide the employee with the wherewithal during the period that he is looking for another employment. The basis of separation pay is the computation of separation pay of an employee shall be based on his or her latest salary rate, plus the regular allowance that the employee has been receiving. 1 month pay per year of service, an employee is entitled to a separation pay equivalent to his 1 month pay for every year of service, a fraction of at least 6 months being considered as a whole year if his or her separation from service is due to any of the following: installation by employer of labor-saving devices, redundancy. Ito yung mga authorized causes. Installation of labor-saving devices, redundancy, impossible reinstatement of employee to his former position, due to not attributable to the fault of the employer, and lack of service assignment of security guard by reason of age. Another relief, damages. The employee is entitled to moral damages when the employer acted in bad faith or in fraud, or in a manner oppressive to labor, and in a manner contrary to morals, good customs, or public policy. In labor cases, the court may award exemplary damages if the dismissal was effected in wanton, oppressive, or malevolent manner. Of course, ang attorney's fees, wag kakalimutan, in cases of unlawful withholding of wages, the culpable party may be assessed attorney's fees, which amounts to 10% of the amount of wages recovered. It shall be unlawful for any person to demand or accept in any juridical or administrative proceedings for the recovery of wages attorney's fees which exceed 10% of the amount of wages recovered. So, until 10% lang tayong mga abogado. Okay, the doctrine of strained relation. So, under this doctrine, when there is no doubt that the relationship of employer to employee is so strained and ruptured as to preclude a harmonious working relationship, should reinstatement of the employee be decreed, the employee should be given separation pay so that he can be spared the agony of having to work anew with the employer under an atmosphere of antipathy and antagonism, and the employee does not have to endure the continued services of the employee in whom it has lost confidence. And the payment of separation pay is considered an acceptable alternative to reinstatement when the latter option is no longer desirable or viable. On one hand, such payment liberates the employee from what could be a highly oppressive work environment. On the other hand, it releases the employer from the grossly unpalatable obligation of maintaining in its employ a worker it could no longer trust. So, sira na kasi yung relasyon ng employer and employee. So, instead of reinstatement, ang pwedeng naman gawin ay magbayad na lang si employer ng separation pay. Since hindi naman na mapagkakatiwalaan ng employer sa employee, si employee naman baka magkaroon lang ng atmosphere of antipathy, antagonism, di ba? Yon. Now, the burden of proof. Who has the burden of proof? Okay, for the existence of employer-employee relationship, it is the employee. So, kailangan patunayan ng empleyado na meron siyang employer-employee relationship with the employer. If ang gusto mong patunayan is the fact of dismissal, it is also the employee. Kailangan mong patunayan na dinismiss ka illegally. Okay? And the employer must also prove that there was validity of dismissal. So, the employee has the burden of proving fact of employment of dismissal before a case for illegal dismissal can prosper. An employer-employee relationship must first be established by the employee. The employee must first establish by substantial evidence the fact of his dismissal from service. If there is no dismissal, then there can be no question as to the legality or illegality thereof. The employer has the burden of proving valid dismissal. Unsubstantiated accusations or baseless conclusions of the employer are insufficient legal justifications to dismiss an employee. The unflinching rule in illegal dismissal cases is that the employer bears the burden of proof. So, quit claim. A quit claim in the context of labor law is a legal document wherein an employee waives or relinquishes their right to any further claims against their employer after their employment ends. It is valid if the agreement was voluntary entered into and represents a reasonable settlement. It is binding on the parties and may not be later disowned simply because of a change of mind. It is invalid, however, where there is a clear proof that the waiver was wangled from an unsuspecting or gullible person, or the terms of settlement are unconscionable on its face, that the law will step in to annul the questionable transaction. Termination by an employee, of course, pwede siyang mag-resign. The voluntary act of an employee who is in a situation where one believes that personal reasons cannot be sacrificed in favor of exigency of the service and one has no other choice but to dissociate oneself from employment. It is a formal pronouncement or relinquishment of an office, with the intention of relinquishing the office accompanied by the act of relinquishment. Abandonment. It is a deliberate and unjustified refusal of an employee to resume his employment. It is a form of neglect of duty. There must be a failure to report for work or absence without valid or justifiable reason, and, the most important, clear intention to sever the employer-employee relationship. Ito, awol lang tawag dito eh. And the burden to prove whether the employee abandoned his work rests on the employer. Absence must be accompanied by an overt act, unerringly pointing to the fact that the employee simply does not want to work anymore. For retirement, it is an additional pay provided to cover the employee who is retiring. In a private sector, one-half month pay in retirement pay is equivalent to 22.5 days. Retirement pay requires at least 5 years of service, and the retirement age is optional at 60 and mandatory at 65. Right? Any employee may be retired upon reaching the retirement age established in the collective bargaining or other applicable employment contract. In case of retirement, the employee shall be entitled to receive such retirement benefits as he may have earned under existing laws and any collective bargaining agreement and other agreements, provided, however, that an employee's retirement benefits under any CBA and other agreements shall not be less than those provided therein. In the absence of retirement plan or agreement providing for retirement benefits of employees in the establishment, an employee reaching age of 60 or more but not beyond 65, which is hereby declared the compulsory retirement age, who has served at least 5 years in the said establishment, may retire and shall be entitled to retirement pay equivalent to at least one-half month salary for every year of service, a fraction of at least 6 months being considered as one whole year. Unless the parties provide for broader inclusions, the term of one-half month salary shall mean 15 days plus one-half month, 1/12 of the 13-month pay, and a cash equivalent of not more than 5 days of his SILs, kaya 22.5. However, for underground mining employee, upon reaching the age of 50 or more but not beyond 60, is hereby declared as a compulsory retirement age for underground mine workers who has served at least 5 years as underground miner, or may retire and shall be entitled to all retirement benefits provided for in this article. In retail, service, and agricultural establishments or operations employing not more than 10 employees or workers are exempted from this retirement benefit.